I hope that our learning together gives you energy and hope and inspiration and even joy. And I think that's why we start our learning with the aspiration, the intention, with the blessing that reminds us that we're learning to enrich our lives, to deepen our sense of allyship and allegiance and support as active allies, as literate allies to lesbians and gays and bisexual people, people who identify as intersex, people who identify as queer, people who identify as transgender, whatever your identities may be. One really implicit, if not transparent and explicit goal and objective of this course is to create more sensitive and knowledgeable ambassadors, if you will, to the tribe of the tribes and identities that I belong to, being Jewish, being queer, being a lesbian, being a feminist, being a reform liberal Jew affiliated with a community. Those are all identities that are so personal to my storyline and run through my objectives for this course, because I want you to represent me in all your spheres of influence. When people will say one thing or another, wherever you may be, I want you to be able to like challenge that, question that, bring nuance to that, affirm it if it feel, but that's for me like this. So when I'm saying this blessing or prayer for study to start us off, that the Hebrew, I'll say it in Hebrew, and if you know it, you can join me, but the essence of it is, or even it would be great if I could find it in the Siddur and put it up for you. That would be ideal, but I'm not going to be able to multitask that today. But I want you to see that the words in the prayer book for a blessing for study basically express this hope that being engaged in study, being engaged in wrestling ideas and people's stories, listening to them and wrestling to make sense of them, especially if they challenge our own prior assumptions, that there's something holy and sacred about doing that because it can be transformative. Engaging in the study of Torah, and Torah, by Torah, I mean like just learning in general, engaging in learning is such a core Jewish value. It's understood that learning leads to transformation. So, like, so much of this class, and this is where I'll end, and then we'll say this blessing together. So much of the culmination of this class is to be expressed in finding out what you've learned, what you think with this, all the soup that we're helping to create with multiple ingredients this week. Thumbs up. Did you follow me or did you lose my bouncing ball? I hope most of you could follow along with what I just had to offer there as a prelude and as a as the intention for setting forth a blessing. So, okay, so let's see. I'm gonna see if I can find this really quick. Here's the beautiful Siddur. I think I'll share screen and then you can see. Do I have to find the page in the Siddur before I? Boy, I used to know the pages by heart, but bear with me as I find the blessing for the study of Torah. I think it's probably in the morning service. I'm gonna try and go down to the morning service. Yep.
Page 181.
You're my savior. Huh. Mm-hmm. Almost there. I'm scrolling and it feels like I'm davening, which is a kind of praying, moving forward, back and forth. Am I find it? Here we go. There we go. Gotta be a quicker way to get there next time. Okay. Hmm. All right. So try these words. Even if you're new to Hebrew, you're on mute, so we can't hear you, but practice them out loud with me. You're gonna, and then we'll look at it in English. Baruch, you read here. Whoops, how do I make that? You go up here. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Just going to do that paragraph in the Hebrew. And it translates to, blessed are you, Adonai our God, creator of the universe, who, I like to translate this as, who invited us near with opportunities to make life holier and instructed us to occupy ourselves with the study of Torah. Blessed is the eternal, the teacher of Torah to the people of Israel. All right. Well, thank you for joining me and setting your own intentions for this day of learning. To remind you just briefly, you can find the schedule for today and the whole course in the module. It says course calendar, and there's a cool graph that's mostly accurate. And today it goes like this. We start with Queering God's Spirituality and Prayer with Magid Eli Ramer till 2 o'clock. Then you have a 15-minute break or so, maybe a little less. And then we start with Queering Torah Ethics and Commentary with Mike Shriver. And he'll take you to 3:15, and then we'll have another little break. And then I'll be with you. We'll talk about Friday night, last Friday night, this coming Friday night, and your conversations and interviews. And then at 4 o'clock, you'll meet with Deborah Pollock Levy, who's coming to teach about her experience as a Jew in relationship to her Jewishness and her relationship to Israel and Zionism and anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism and the current war. And that'll be at 4 with plenty of time for Q&A. And then we'll wrap up together and class will end at 5:15. Without further ado, I hand you over to Eli Ramer, and I'll put myself on mute.
Thank you, Rabbi. Well, it's such a joy to be back with all of you. And some of you I saw on Friday night, so that was very lovely. And I invite you in the spirit of what a blessing is. And I don't know if any of you come from traditions where a blessing is a part of the philosophy, but we're always racing around, we're always moving, we're always doing things. And a piece of the value of a blessing in the Jewish tradition is that it makes you stop, take a breath, notice where you are, notice what's happening. So I invite you to look around the screen, notice who's here. Look around your room and notice what's there, what surrounds you. Feel your breath, feel the way that your body is sitting in a chair, on the floor, on the couch. And one of the quotations I sent you was, "Absolute attention is prayer," by one of my favorite writers, who is Simone Weil, who is a French Jew who found her spiritual life in Catholicism. So feel what it means to be present. Notice, are you looking at something else? Or are you listening to something else? Or are you here? Many years ago, I had a meditation teacher, and I went to him for a private session. I said, the longest I've ever gone without having a thought enter my head where I was really present was 3.5 breaths. And this was my meditation teacher. And he said, wow, you're ahead of me. The longest I've ever gone is 3 breaths. So notice your breath. Inhale and exhale. Notice where you are. Notice that you're in this queer Jewish journey. Notice what time it is, where you are, because I think we're all in different places. And what we're going to do today is step into another section of the Siddur, the prayer book from Shor Zahav. And the section that we're going to step into is welcoming Shabbat, Kabbalat Shabbat. So how many of you, show of hands, how many of you were at the Friday service this week? Cool, a good number of you. So some of you may choose to come back this Friday night. This is a little bit of show off and tell. I will be giving the sermon. So it'll be fun to see you then, and fun to journey with you. So one of the things, I don't know if all of you are aware of this, and I don't know if you've talked about this yet, Rabbi, but we think of the new day in our calendar as starting at midnight. But in the Jewish tradition, the new day starts at sunset, which is why the beginning of Shabbat is Friday night. And Jewish holidays start in the evening of the day. So a day goes from sunset to sunset. So that's a piece of it. Was everyone aware of that? Or is this new to people? So think about that. And I'm glad you thought it's better. And please take care of yourself. That's an essential commandment to me. So thank you, Elizabeth. So there are other calendars that organize time this way. But the other piece that's interesting and different in the Jewish calendar is that it's a dance between lunar months, but a solar year. So if a lunar month is around 30 days, but when you add them up to have 12, it's not quite the same as the length of a solar year. So for instance, the Hindu calendar is very like the Jewish calendar, but the Muslim calendar is entirely lunar months that aren't adjusted. So we have, if you know, in the calendar, we use the Christian Gregorian calendar. Every 4 years, we have a leap day to balance time out, where there's an extra day in February. In the Jewish calendar, out of 19 years, I think 6 or 7 of them have an entire other month to balance that out. So you're stepping into a world with different time. And what's interesting is that because of this balancing, the Jewish New Year comes in the fall. Hanukkah comes in the Northern Hemisphere in the winter. But in the Muslim calendar, it's a more than 30-year cycle. So if you're little and it's winter and you're celebrating Christmas, it's always going to be that. But in the Muslim calendar, in Ramadan, if you're little and it's winter, it's going to take about 30 years of it wandering through the calendar to come back. So I want you to be very aware of time when you're stepping into Jewish spaces, that it's organized in a different way. And anyone have questions about that before I go on? And if you do, again, just unmute yourself, which you can do at any point. When I taught at USF, I used to say, I think I said this to you already, in the Jewish world, if somebody doesn't interrupt me to ask a question or comment, I feel like they're not really listening and they don't like me. So totally just unmute and say things. And if not,
I wanted to clarify, you were saying the Jewish calendar it's not lunar, it's solar, is what you're saying?
well, the year is solar. So a
Okay.
solar year has 365 days approximately. So like the
Yeah.
calendar we use, the Gregorian calendar, January, February, March, April, is basically a solar year. And it's still not exact. So every 4 years we add one day.
Mm-hmm.
But a lunar month is approximately 28, 29, 30 days long, the time that the moon goes around the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So when you add those up to 12 to have the months, it's only about 354 days, not the 365 days of the solar year. So you have to find a way to balance it out.
Okay.
The Hindu calendar does it one way, the Jewish calendar does it another way, and the Muslim calendar just sticks with a lunar year. So good question. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Yeah. Anyone else? So what we're going to be looking at today is the section in the Siddur, which is the introduction to the Friday night service, Kabbalat Shabbat, or Sabbath Welcome. And I want to read you a few things to give you a sense of how this part of the Siddur is organized and how this part of the service is organized, because there's a flow to a Jewish service, but there's also lots of choices. So I don't know that this is the same. Like often, I used to live up the street from Mission Dolores in San Francisco, and I like, once a week to go to Mass, and it was pretty much always the same. In some places in a Jewish service, it's pretty much always the same. But in Shar Zahav, there's a theme and a section and multiple different readings. So it's shifting, it's moving, it's changing. And I want to read a couple of things if you have opened the PDF and want to look at it. And I think Rabbi Angel may show them on the screen. So I want to go to page 83. And I want to read something that's called On Prayer. And again, I want to go back to look at, in these things, is this word God? But I want you to hold God in what that word means to you. And go back to the Frank Lloyd Wright quotation, which I love and share a lot. The architect who said, I believe in God, only I spell it nature. So prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, to let God's will prevail in our lives. Prayer cannot bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. So if you want to, you can stay muted or not, but read with me and feel what the words feel like to you. And you may now have an arid soul, a broken heart, or a weakened will. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, to let God's will prevail in our lives. Prayer cannot bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. And I want to read the next one, and you can read it with me out loud or quietly. I am unique. And I want you to feel, and I'm going to read it again twice, where this is coming from and where this is going to in the context of Shar Zahav and in the context of the class that you're in. My God, I thank you for my life, my soul, and my body, for my name, for my sexual and affectional nature, for my way of thinking and talking. Help me realize that in my qualities, I am unique in the world. For were this not so, I would not have needed to exist. Help me make perfect my own ways of loving and caring, that by becoming perfect in my own way, I can honor your name and help bring about the coming of the Messianic age. So again, my God, I thank you for my life, my soul, and my body, for my name, for my sexual and affectional nature, for my way of thinking and talking. Help me realize that in my qualities, I am unique in the world. You are all unique in the world. For were this not so, I, you, we would not have needed to exist. Help us make perfect our own ways of loving and caring, that by becoming perfect in our own ways, we can honor your name and help bring about the coming of the Messianic age. So, Messianic age in a Christian context refers back to Jesus, the Messiah, who has come already. In a Jewish context, we can look at the second coming, Jesus' return, but in a Jewish context, the Messiah hasn't come yet. And the work that we're doing as students, as healers, as people on a spiritual journey is to create the shift that opens up the coming of the Messiah. And what Messiah means is actually Mashiach, is someone who's anointed. And some of you who come from Christian and other traditional backgrounds may notice that there are rituals where someone is often anointed in different parts of their body with blessed oil or blessed with incense. So this is a part of the journey in Judaism that we're working in perfecting ourselves to open the world to the Messiah coming, to the time of peace and joy and fullness in the world. And sometimes what we believe is that there is a Messiah. But what you see in this prayer is that they're not talking about the coming of the Messiah. And in almost every tradition, the Messiah is a man. In almost every story I write, being the heretical Jew that I am, in all of my stories, the Messiah is a woman. But what this actually talks about is the coming of the Messianic age. So I want you to feel the difference, what Messianic age means compared to what coming of the Messiah means. And I want to read one more piece from this page, 83, Union. And I want you to feel if this resonates, if it doesn't, what it evokes in you. Union. Prayer is union with the divine presence. Just as two people will move their bodies back and forth as they begin the act of love, so must a person accompany the beginning of prayer with the rhythmic swaying of the body. But as we reach the heights of union with the presence, the movement of the body ceases. So Rabbi Angel mentioned this word before, daven. So often you will notice, especially in very traditional Jewish communities, that everyone is swaying as they move. That prayer in a Jewish context isn't just from the head up, just from the brain or the neck up. It involves the whole body. And we see this. I don't know how many of you have ever been to a Hindu or a Muslim or a Jain or a Sikh service where people prostrate themselves, where the whole body is involved in prayer, where you get on your knees and you bow. So this movement in the Jewish world is a kind of remembering of that from a time when all Jews knelt on the floor to pray, which my understanding historically is that that kind of faded as in Europe, the Jewish world was opening up to the Christian world where people didn't pray that way. So I want to read it again, and maybe this time close your eyes, feel what these words mean in and to you, and feel what these words means divine presence for you. Prayer is union with the divine presence. Just as two people will move their bodies back and forth as they begin the act of love, so must a person accompany the beginning of prayer with the rhythmic swaying of the body. But as we reach the heights of union with the presence, the movement of the body ceases. So I want you to feel what happens in your body as you move and as you come to stillness. And the notion of the bodies in the act of love actually conjures a metaphor that we see in a lot of places. There's a book in the Hebrew Bible called Song of Songs, which is a series of erotic love poems. But ancient rabbis said that it's actually a metaphor of the love between God and the children of Jacob, the people of Israel. And we see this in like Muslim Sufi poets talking about the divine beloved. How many of you read Rumi ever? Rumi is an amazing poet, and this image comes up a lot in Sufism, in Islam, of the divine beloved that we're invoking, the presence of God, goddess, nature, all that is that manifests in the world. So I want you to feel that, and I'm going to step on to page 87 and read something that you would not find in a traditional siddur. And in a moment, you'll know why. It's called Rainbow. When I see a rainbow, the flag flying from the lamppost, fluttering in the Pacific breeze, I know that God made a covenant between us. If we lived our lives in black and white, we would never see that promise God made. To see all those colors together, it reminds me that God is there for you and me. So read it with me again. And do you know that what this is talking about is the rainbow flag? Do you know that what this is talking about is the Pride Parade going down Market Street in San Francisco every year? So feel that as you deepen into the words, and notice your body, notice your breath. Notice what comes up for you in the context of this class and this journey, whatever your relationship to the word queer is. When I see a rainbow, the flag flying from the lamppost, fluttering in the Pacific breeze, I know that God made a covenant between us. If we lived our lives in black and white, we would never see that promise God made. To see all those colors together, it reminds me that God is there for you and me. So that's one of the pieces of this little prayer, blessing, invocation. But it also spirals back to a story in the Hebrew Bible that you may know. Does everybody know the story of Noah and the ark? Looks like almost everybody does. So this is the story where God could have destroyed the world, but doesn't. And one man and his family are saved on an ark, on a boat, and become the ancestors of all of humanity from that point on. And God makes a covenant, an agreement. I will not do this again, and puts a rainbow in the sky as the sign and the seal that this is God's word, that we will not be destroyed again. So the rainbow flag is playing with that notion of salvation. This prayer is playing with it in a way that I hope makes sense to you, whatever your identity is. And again, I want us to use queer in the biggest way possible. You know, you may not identify on the small scale as non-binary, as trans, as a lesbian, as a gay man, as as any of those things. But I'm kind of thinking that even if you are cisgender and heteronormative, that if you're in this class, that you're queer, queer meaning different and odd. And I'm celebrating your queerness, whatever it is. So I want to read something. I'm only going to read it once because it's long, but it grounds some of what I've been talking about and what the class is talking about in stories in texts from Hebrew Bible. It's on page 88, and it's called For LGBTQIQ People. Our people came out of Egypt, a mixed multitude, the spray of dividing waters, sparkling diamonds all around them. We stood together at Sinai, all of us, future, present, past, amidst the rumble of thunder and the crack of bright lightning, to enter into covenant with the one who loves us, in whose shining image we are all created over and over again. We have wandered bleak landscapes, built flimsy tents of skins and then houses of stone. We have planted orchards and vineyards, seen 2 temples rise and then go down in surging flames, forcing us into exile. We have loved and lost, grieved and danced, transgressed and celebrated, hidden, suffered, thrived. And we gather here this day in the community of our people, a mixed multitude, and we sing out, "Hear, O Israel." We stand together, all of us, descendants of the single first human created on the 6th day, and of our myriad parents down through the generations, too numerous to name. We stand together, link arms, and pray. Blessed are you, God of the universe, who sanctifies us with the commandment to love ourselves and one another in all our varied ways, and blesses us with a diamond bright radiance that still ripples out from your first spoken words of creation. So I want you to feel that little bit of history. I want you to hear that when we say, "Hear, O Israel," we are talking about our ancestor Jacob and his descendants in prayer. So if you're hearing Israel and thinking state of Israel, it's a part of the story, but that's not what's the core of the prayer. And I want to read 2 more pieces for you. This is on page 94, and it's called A Spring. And it was written by the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Jewish Hasidic movement. And I'll just read it once. Again, please read with me if you feel like, or maybe it won't be on the screen, so I will read it. A Spring. And I want you to feel where we're being walked through from thought to thought to thought. If we were to walk in the woods and a spring appeared just when we became thirsty, we would call it a miracle. And if on a second walk, if we became thirsty at just that point again, and again the spring appeared, we would remark on the coincidence. But if that spring were always there, we would take it for granted and cease to notice it. Yet, is that not more miraculous still? So I want you to think about that in the sense of what is miraculous that we take for granted. So I want you to look around you. If you have a plant growing that you water and you don't think about, you have a kitten, a bird, a pet, something that sometimes you notice is miraculous, but sometimes you don't. And I want you to play with what comes up for you. If you were to walk in the woods and a spring appeared, you're just wandering through the woods. Oh my God, the spring appears. Wow. And then the second time, wow, but not so big. But the piece that I read is an invitation to start to notice, which may seem utterly alien. What if everything is a miracle? How does that feel to you? How does that seem to you? How does that sit with you? And what does it mean going back to this story? Because again and again, I'm going to be inviting us to look at stories. So how many of you know the story of the Exodus from Egypt? Show of hands. Good. A fair number of you, but not everyone. So in the Torah, our ancient ancestors, and one I mentioned just before, Jacob, who gets renamed Israel, is the son of Isaac, is the son of Abraham. We often talk about the patriarchs, the three patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah. And Jacob had many wives and concubines. But there's a period in our ancient history when the ancestors of the people of Israel go down to Egypt in the time of a plague and end up becoming enslaved. And this is a very big part of the story of Moses, who is the liberator who leads the people out of slavery. And that would be like a 4-hour story to tell. But what it says in the Torah, and this is useful for us to remember, is it says in the Torah, we came out of Egypt a mixed multitude. It doesn't define what that means, but it's always a reminder in the Jewish world that we are a complex people. We didn't just come out one kind of thing. So I hope that's helpful in looking at the beginning of the blessing. Our people came out of Egypt a mixed multitude, the spray of dividing water, sparkling diamonds all around them. And so I want you to feel that we sitting here are a mixed multitude, and yet we're all together in this magical reality that I'm so fond of called Zoom that brings us together. So as we step into a Friday night service, one of the things that you'll notice if you were there, and you'll notice when you go, is that there are rituals that define the service. And one of them is very clearly in the Jewish tradition that what marks the separation between the end of one week and at Shabbat, the beginning of the next week, is lighting candles. So I think I've showed this to you before. These candlesticks, have I shown them to you before? They make me very happy. Because I have lung damage, I don't like candles. I put marbles in mine. But these candlesticks are my inheritance from my great aunt, and they go back to my Turkish, Jewish, Sephardi ancestors. I don't know how old they are. One museum authority who I showed it to thought they were about 150, 200 years old, but I'm not sure. But they are from Turkey, where my mother's family came from. And so I want you to notice when you go to a Friday night service that this defining ritual starts Shabbat. And one of the pieces of Shabbat is that during Shabbat, you're not supposed to make a fire. There are certain practices the Torah says you can't do. So the candles are lit officially, and in Reform world, we do it whenever the time is right. But in a traditional Orthodox world, you light the candles before the sun goes down. because when the sun goes down, that's when the next day starts. So that's one of the rituals that you're going to see. And I'm wondering, do any of you have little rituals that you use to demarcate time in any kind of way? Like, this is one of my favorite rituals that I don't share with a lot of people, but I like to mark Shabbat morning when I get up by eating breakfast in the bathtub. As far as I know, I made up that ritual. I don't know anyone else who's ever done it, but to me, it's really meaningful. When we have drought season, I don't take baths. And I keep all the water in my bathtub to water all my plants. But does anyone have a ritual that you want to share that's meaningful for you in any kind of way? I see several of you thinking. Shall I go on? Or does somebody want to dive in and say yes?
I think for me, something I do like that kind of signifies for me at the end of my week is I'll do some sort of cleaning in my apartment on Saturdays because at least this last term of school, that was my one available day of the week that I didn't have class or work or anything. And so I would try and do even if it was really small, but just do some sort of cleaning.
Beautiful. I love that. That is great. Anyone else want to share some ritual that you have?
Yeah, I do have one that may sound really like primitive, but I take my pills every evening, and every time I take my pills, I tell to myself, "Wow, I made it another day." And it's like it's the night. It's like time to go sleep. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's
totally.
it's
I love that. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So in the Siddur, what you'll see, and when you go to a Friday night service or a Saturday one, there are candles that are lit. That's this point of demarcation. There are particular prayers that we say. So one of them, which is one of my favorites, is Shalom Aleichem, and it's a prayer where we welcome in angels. Now, what I want to say about angels is, I don't know if any of you believe in angels at all, but the word for angel in Hebrew, malach, means messenger. So on a certain level, we tend to think of these beings with wings, but on another level, I want you to invite into your consciousness, when you hear this prayer, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashachet, Malachei Elyon, that it's about messengers. And so when you think back on your life, has there ever been a messenger in your life? Your grandmother, your fourth grade teacher, a kid down the street who gave you a piece of information that was meaningful and transformative. And has there ever been a time where you were someone's messenger, you were someone's angel, where you brought something to somebody in a meaningful way? And sometimes we use this, like I call my son Angel. That's like my nickname for him. And there's so many songs about angels. Mike is going to be working with song lyrics. This is probably one of my favorite 60s, 70s songs. Gotta find me an angel to fly away with me. So I want you to think about, what does angel mean in the context of your life as messenger and as welcoming in Shabbat? And then we have another metaphor, which is the next step, which is welcoming in the Sabbath queen or the Sabbath bride, who is the manifestation embodied of the spirit of Sabbath. So some of it in a binary traditional culture that saw God as male is that God's presence in the world in Judaism is often seen as female, and Shabbat is often seen as female. So I want you to think about that as we're moving toward our going to do a little bit of writing ourselves. So ritual, metaphor of embodiment. What does that mean to you? And we've talked about this before, and I'm going to read first the translation of the beginning of Psalm 96. So there's a book in the Hebrew Bible which is traditionally said that King David wrote all of these Psalms. They show up in the New Testament referenced, and they certainly show up in the Christian Bible, the book of Psalms. Historically, they probably were written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later. But I love that we tell these stories about stories. So I want to read in English the beginning of Psalm 96 in a Shar Zahav translation. And the word traditionally would be translated as sing to the Lord. But what we say here is sing to the eternal. Sing a new song. Sing to God all across the land. Sing to the eternal, bless God's name. Sing every day of God's salvation. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai, baruch shemo, basru liyom liyom Yeshuato. Shiru l'Adonai, baruch shemo, basru miyom liyom, Yeshuato. So I want you to feel that sense of what this means. And I want you to hold in your body, again, we're going to spiral back. Notice your breath. Notice where you're sitting. Notice the relationship of your body to the chair, the couch, the floor. Rub your hands together. Rub your chest, rub your legs, rub anywhere you're comfortable and anywhere you can reach. Rub your head. Your ears, your heart. The central prayer of Judaism, the Shema, says, "Hear, O Israel." But when the prayer is signed for people who don't hear through their ears, but through their eyes and hands, the sign gesture isn't here, but is tapping your heart. So I want you to feel that your heart is an ear of a kind that takes in life and vitality. And I want you to close your eyes for a moment, feel your body, feel your breath, feel this moment of stepping into Nas. And close your eyes. In fact, cover your eyes. What do you hear around you? Clock ticking, your computer humming, your kitten meowing. And put your hands on your heart. Can you feel it beating? Then reach out for your pen or pencil and pad. And remember I talked about my reinvention, my queering of a traditional Japanese text, a haiku with 17 syllables into what I'm calling a haiku, since the word chai in Hebrew, the numerical value is 18. So I'm inviting you to write something really tiny of 6 syllables, 6 syllables, 6 syllables, just whatever comes through you from your body. Pen in hand, clock ticking. I have to go to the bathroom. Just let the words flow through you. Don't edit them, don't shape them. Just go for it. And as I said earlier, because I could queer a haiku from 17 to 18, you can queer what I'm doing from 18 to 9. And just see what comes out of you. Not from your head, from your heart, from your body. Ah, good. Good, good, good. This is what poured from me. I didn't even count the syllables yet. On my chair, laptop humming, I am smiling at the camera at all of you. So let's just sort of wander around and see where we are right now. So, Arden, you want to share what you wrote? Are you here? Yes.
Sorry, you said you want me to share?
Please, yes, I'm going to call on everybody. So you're at the top of the list. So hi, Arden. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of was having trouble sticking with the format specifically of, like the haiku thing. So I did just kind of free write a little bit.
Perfect. Just read it. Yeah. Everybody, in fact, you don't even need to. We're just sitting with you, listening and holding. So thanks, Arden. Go for it.
Okay. Flag waving, clear skies, water. Sorry, I'm like trying to read my handwriting. Water running, blue eyes. Soft blankets, warm home. Without him, not alone.
Oh,
And
thank
the
you.
him is my cat, by the way. It's not like a boy or anything. It's like my cat.
Perfect. Perfect. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Wonderful.
Thanks.
Beautiful. Okay. So B, you're up next. Unmute and read to us, please. Yes, I will try and remember. I will call on you in the end. Okay. Chirayu, will you read to us, please?
Yeah. Hello? Hello?
Hello, hello.
Yeah. So, mine was something similar. It was just peace and warm lighting and a rainy day, and it was lights, dim lights, and heavy blankets. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. Elizabeth, do you feel like reading or do you want to put what you did in the chat?
Can I type in chat, please?
Okay. So please put it in the chat. Thank you, Elizabeth. And Erica, you're up next. Please read to us.
Mine says, Azure of the sky, sun's warmth enveloping me, a perfect Tuesday.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Georgia.
My cat was just like next to me. So, mine is soft purrs by my side, warm fur, gentle dreams align, peace and close repose.
What's your cat's name?
Her name is Hazel.
Oh, perfect. Hi, Hazel. Thank you for studying with us. Jasmine, please read to us.
Sure. I wrote, I feel calm and at peace. Birds are chirping outside. My dog sitting nearby.
Thank you. I like that. Okay. Jason, you're up next.
So I just wrote something about how it's very hot outside, but where I am right now, it's actually really cold, the room. So I put outside sun, strong blaze, in cool dark room, hanging out, comfort in the shade.
Thank you. Thank you. So take in all of these things. Layla, please read to us.
I wrote a light wind and clear skies. The dogs are so happy. Mom and Mark are home now because my parents just got back from vacation and walked in, and the dogs are running around.
That's so nice. Okay, I'm going to read Elizabeth's words. Thank you for putting them in the chat. And you can start to hear like there's this little kind of dance as if only one person was writing this through all of us, that there's echoes and repetitions of colors, of wind, of places. So our cat in my room, our dogs in the living room. This is what I call a balance. Feeling blessed in an apartment, in a city where the sense of nature is missing. Beautiful. Thank you. So, Lydia, please read to us.
So I actually wrote about the same thing as Jason. I'm really cold, but it's hot outside. So I wrote, so cold, want the sun, the warmth on my skin, and the summer breeze.
Thank you. Yes. Maggie, you're up next.
Okay, mine is feet tapping on the floor, knee bobbing up and down. Room is hot and humid. because I'm not as lucky to have a cold room as everyone else is.
Oh, that is so great. Oliver, please read to us.
So I kind of noted, like my mind is wandering, I guess, and like you mentioned the like tapping of the heart and talking about sort of like it being like your, I guess, not necessarily a substitute for ears, but kind of like the point at which you can intake information. And my mind kind of went like, no, like that's not how that works. So like there's this kind of like, I guess, like combativeness that I noticed. So I wrote, what is this reticence? Where has it come from? Why not let it just sit?
Good questions. Thank you. Rebecca.
Yeah, mine's very much stream of consciousness, and I got kind of carried away with the rhyming, but it's fan humming, straw dripping, head pounding, thoughts running.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Reese.
So I put the bustling city, blue skies till horizon, summer is here at last.
Very nice. And Simran, please read to us.
Sure. I wrote gentle rain whispers, nature's breath and soft embrace, life's tender moments. I'm not sure if that would count or like fit in the requirement, but yeah, this is what I got.
Totally does. The instructor is very flexible, but even if the instructor can, has the instructor ever shown off that he can literally still put his feet in his mouth? He's very proud of that as a 73-year-old man, and that was beautiful. So thank you. Thank you, thank you. So Trong.
Yeah, give me a sec. Okay, so it's summer, so the first thing that comes to my mind is I want to go to the beach, but the beach in San Francisco is a bit freezing. So I guess waves gets my sandy toes, sunshine tickle my smiling face, seashells high in the sand. My friend built a big castle. Seagulls dance along the breeze. Beach day, I will enjoy it.
Beautiful. I'll go with you. I'll enjoy it too.
I wish we all could.
Next week. Okay, so Yan, please read to us.
It's actually super cold today, and I'm also in a cold house. So I wrote, it is cold here. I am under a blanket. I want hot cocoa.
Gorgeous. Thank you. B, are you ready to read to us? You're still muted if you are wanting to read to us, B. Oh, okay. In the chat. Thank you. I just saw that. Lovely. Sunlight through green leaves, whispers of joy in the breeze, nature's calm embrace. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mike, did you write anything? Would you like to read it to us?
I didn't write anything. I'm sorry.
That is not a problem. Rabbi, did you write anything?
I did. I wrote the Baal Shem Tov was right. Breath, river, nature, you, with me always, don't forget.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So because of the way that I'm vision impaired, it's very hard for me to do multiple things at the same time, but I think I called on everyone. Did I leave anyone out? If I did, I apologize. and just raise your hand or jump up and down. Oh, good. Okay. So I hope that that felt in some way meaningful for you. Thinking of rituals, that writing, again, back to the Franz Kafka quote, writing is prayer. So whether or not you were sitting there thinking, ooh, I'm praying now. If Franz Kafka was standing behind your chair, he would have said, ooh, you're praying and you're praying and you're praying and you're praying and you're praying. And back to Simone Weil, absolute attention is prayer. And what I loved in everything that all of you shared was the attention, the being present to what's going on in and around you. And that's not something that we usually do in this culture. We're so distracted now. I'm walking down, I can't tell you the number of times I'm walking down the street and someone almost walks into me because they're on their phone or is coming by on a scooter. And I watched someone once get knocked over by someone because the person on the scooter was on their phone and just slammed into, this woman around my age who was fine. But I hope that what you feel is the dance that I'm taking you in and back to what the rabbi talked about, that word of Jewish prayer of davening, movement, that it's very embodied. Is one of the things, I go to a church, I pray in mosques. Part of my family are Hindu and Sikh, and thing I've talked about, my son's a Wiccan priest. There's something I love about the embodiment of Jewish practice, especially on, something just popped up from Mike. I shall read it. Max is chewing on his toy. A mosaic of faces on Zoom. Flowers in bloom in my apartment. It is very calm here. So I hope it's calm there. If it's not calm, I hope it's deliciously, resonantly beautiful. I hope that as you were writing, that somewhere in your consciousness or unconsciousness was echoing the thought, oh wait, messenger, malach, we welcome the messengers. A message is coming through me. And every one of you has just shared a message with all of us. So in my consciousness, that makes all of you angels. So thank you for your messages. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for sharing. Oh, it's a joy to be with you. I think we get a little break now. Is that correct, Rabbi?
In just a moment, I actually, I want to thank you for the morning's practice and ritual, grounding us in prayer and spirit and just, yeah, peer to peer. I feel grateful to have been a student in your group today. And we are going to take a break in just a minute, and then we'll come back for our session on querying the text with Mike. And I have a passage that I want to read to you that's meant to be a bridge. I'll take a picture of it and put it up as a text, but I don't have it, so you'll have to listen. I'll read it twice. It's by one of my teachers, one of the first women rabbis ordained by the Reform movement, Rabbi Laura Geller. And she says this is about Torah and text and sacred texts. She says, in wrestling with texts, I feel less lonely. Wrestling with Torah is like making love. I get close enough to be wounded, and the texts often hurt, but I've gotten close enough to be blessed. The astonishing moment of binding insight when the world suddenly looks forever different, when we discover wholeness in what had seemed to be disparate and unconnected. Divinity is clearly present in these moments. I'll read it again when you come back from break. See you soon. Come back please at 2:14 so we can start promptly at 2:15.